In this presentation, we will be looking at the Strategic Control Plan. The Strategic Control Plan is a plan that allows us to be sure that we are following through with the objectives that we have outlined in our unit action plan and being sure that the steps taken to achieve the outcomes of the objectives are being made and are being measured. As the saying goes, we don't plan to fail, but we often fail to plan. By having a strategic control plan, we are able to ensure that the objectives that we have set in our strategic plan are being followed through. As you can see from this slide, to manage is to control, and to control is to manage. Both activities are synonymous. However, when we control, we're looking at regulating, guiding, and directing the process. And when we're managing, we are attempting to control, handle, and direct the process. So in looking at how you are going to strategically manage the objectives that you have outlined in your unit action plan, be sure to remember to manage is to control and to control is to manage. And therefore, control is not a bad thing, but it helps us to manage and be prepared for any types of uh, negative outcomes from our objectives and to make corrective actions as necessary as we begin working through our strategic plan. In this slide, taken directly out of our textbook, we look at the scope of strategic control. If you go through the directional strategies, the adaptive strategies, the market entry strategies, and the competitive strategies, you can ask the question, are these strategies appropriate? If the answer to that is no, based upon what you're seeing from the unit action plans, then you need to develop new strategies to make the changes for the objectives in order for the unit to complete its task. You also need to be looking at the implementation strategies, such as in the area of service delivery and support strategies, and the unit action plan. And if they're not working, then you need to develop a new implementation strategy and change your business plan to compensate for the changes that need to be made. However, if the answers to looking at the various strategies is yes, that they are appropriate, then you continue on with your present strategy and work your way through your objectives and the strategic plan. The concept of control to the outcomes of the unit action plans consist of, number one, assessing the objectives or redefining the objectives. Second, we need to measure the performance of the outcome of our objectives. And if we compare the performance with the objectives and we see a difference, then we need to determine the reason for the deviations and finally take the corrective action to get us back on plan in order to achieve the objectives of the strategic plan. In considering methods to measure outcomes, you should assess the service performance outcomes to the expected outcomes. And if you're not seeing that they are achieving what you anticipated, then you need to make various changes to that. And be sure that in your strategic control plan that you've outlined what the corrective measures might be. And second, you always need to be assessing the financial outcomes to the budgeted expectations. And if you're finding that there is a variance from the budget, you are called upon to assess what those differences are and determine whatever corrective actions may be necessary in your strategic plan in order to bring your financials into line with the budgeted expectations. This is particularly important if you find that you are operating below budget. You must determine why are we operating below budget in order to correct that action. However, on the inverse, if you find that you are operating above budget in the financial outcomes, particularly in the revenue flow, then you would want to look at what you must be doing right in order to have the high revenue that you had not expected. To summarize the strategic control plan, you first must establish or confirm the performance standards for your plan. Second, you must measure the organizational performance, which means that you have to determine quantifiable goals in the strategic plan. Third, you need to be able to compare the performance with the standards. Then ask the question, are strategic assumptions still valid? If not, then you need to make some changes and identify what those changes are and why you made those changes. Next, you need to ask the question, are the strategies still appropriate? If they're not, then you may want to change those strategies to bring them better into line so that they are appropriate with the expected outcomes of your strategic plan.